Help us keep the Product Porch lights on by giving at patreon.com/theproductporch. Please review the podcast on your favorite platform. Your reviews help new listeners discover us. Thanks.
They see, oh, this new guy, he's been here about 6 months. He's doing really well. Let's put the guy who's not doing well under him.
He didn't appreciate that, huh?
No.
Welcome to the Product Porch with Joe Golly, Ryan Cantwell, and me, Todd Blockier. Our topic today is the role of player coach, how to win, and why you might lose. Now settle in, folks, because on the Product Porch, every topic is a product topic.
All right, gentlemen. So a couple of podcasts ago, we talked about titles, failed PM titles. It's actually a very invigorating discussion, I might add. But we omitted one, and that was the player coach. So that is tonight's topic. And so Todd and Ryan, I'm going to be honest. When I heard the title or the phrase player coach, the hair, whatever hair I do have on my head is now on my neck. And when I heard it, it stood straight up. Because as someone has lived that title, I think it's doomed for failure. I think it's a cop-out. I think it's a way for organizations to dangle a carrot to a young PM and say, we're going to give you a leadership position. We're going to give you a title. We're going to say, hey, this is the next step to growing in your product management career. But my experience says it's a lie. It's a bold-faced lie. They just don't want to pay you to be a leader. And ultimately, they don't reward you. And it's a thankless job where you work way too many hours and something is doomed to fail. Either you're going to suffer as a coach or your tactical day-to-day work is going to suffer. Or your personal life is going to suffer because you're trying to be a home run hitter with both aspects of your job. So gentlemen, my question to you is this. Tell me I'm not the naysayer. Tell me there's a scenario out there where this can work.
Well, Joe, I can't say that you're not the naysayer since you just said no.
Oh, you know what I mean? I know. That's why I did that in grammar. You know, you can just edit that out. Use your magic and edit it out.
You can't say
I mean?
nay and then tell me no.
Nay.
Let me start off. I will say this. Not only will I say it can work, I'm going to give you examples. I'm going to give you data. Now, like, where do the terms player coach come from? You just said hitting home runs. It comes from sports. It comes from sports. My favorite sports, NBA basketball. And the most famous player coach in NBA basketball is Bill Russell from the Boston Celtics. Multiple championships. In fact, they got 2 championships. He was player coach for 3 seasons, I believe. And 2 of those, they won a title. That's pretty compelling data that a player coach can work. Anyway, that's sports. I would argue, though, that I just cherry picked, right? I threw out Bill Russell. And for anyone who knows basketball, Bill Russell is the winningest player in person in basketball.
Right.
It's a little bit of cherry picking. But I'll start there. Anyway, Ryan, you can bring it out of the sports world.
No, I'm going to keep it squarely there because I don't agree that that's a good analogy for business. And here's why. When you are a player coach in business, you are measured on very specific things. Like you have a manager, you have you could argue with me and say, your annual performance review in sports is how many points you put up, how many rebounds you have, how many home runs you hit, how many bases you stole. Like, okay, but in a player coach scenario in business, what am I being judged on? The performance of my product, the performance of the people I am managing and their products. My brain breaks when I try to put those pieces together.
I'm going to counteract your Bill Russell and Lenny Wilkens with a Pete Rose, because I believe he was the last player coach in baseball. And let's recall where that went. And I think it was 86 and 87 with the Reds, and they never won anything. And he later got expelled from baseball or whatever you want to call it. So I can definitely call at least that one off the top of my head. I still have his baseball card.
Why did Pete Rose get expelled?
Oh, because he gambled. Right? He placed bets on his team. He never admitted to it till much later. So let's go back to it, Ryan, right? You're absolutely right. What does success look like for a player coach? How do you measure? Did they do B? If they get a B in one and an A in another, are they successful or are they a failure because they didn't get an A in both of them?
So I like where you're going, Joe. And I think where we should start is let's define this role. So we're talking about product management, right? Yep. So let's define what a player is in product management and what a coach is in product management. I'll start with player, right? And you said this, Ryan. So if I'm a product manager and I'm the player, I'm partially judged on the performance of my product. I should also be judged on the behaviors that I take. So that doesn't mean that my product's going to always be successful, but if I'm doing the right things, taking the right actions, I should be measured on that as well. There's going to be a little more output measuring as a player than a coach. And then my day-to-day looks very different, right? If I'm a player, so I'll just talk about the player role. If I'm a player, I'm a product manager. I'm spending a lot of time with the engineering team. I'm spending a lot of time hopefully with customers, with stakeholders, doing a lot of communications. And I'm very focused on I'm laser focused on the problems of my specific product, right? That's where my brain is at. And that also means, especially at a larger company, that means that when negotiations come into play, so when my product is part of a platform with many products in a portfolio, I'm going to try to say as many P words as possible. I'm putting my little pop filter to the test here. Anyway, when I have a product as part of a portfolio, larger suite, I'm going to advocate on behalf of my users, the problems they have. I'm really laser focused on that aspect. So I want to take the coach. What's different if I'm a coach in product management?
So when you're a coach in product management, you're looking for developing skills in the people that you're coaching. It depends on the individual, and those skills that you're looking to develop are many and varied because it depends on the gaps of the individual. It depends on the gaps of the process in the organization that you're working. It depends on the gaps of the product that you are managing, where the need exists, and even the wider team at large, like the stakeholders that sit around that individual product manager, where they can add the strength to the group, the organization that sits around them. So you are doing your best to fill those areas and make sure that health and growth are delivered for the individual, which should result in health and growth in the product and the business.
So what I hear there is, if I'm player, coach, and product, I have to choose where I invest my time.
Yeah.
And am I investing my time in the strategy of the product? Am I investing my time in the development of the team and resolving issues? If you're a player coach, you have to resolve issues between other players. And that means that when we're talking about product portfolio, who wins, who wins? What do we prioritize? Someone is often going to be unhappy.
Yeah. And Todd, when you said, where are the odds? That's exactly where my mind went. I have been in a situation where my product line I was the player for was vying for resources with the person I was coaching. How do I handle that? Like, I can't be the boss knocking down barriers for my player, or the coach knocking down barriers for my player, when I have my own personal interests. And I bring it back to that measurement. So, like, what is more important to me? To make them successful or to make me successful?
It's really interesting, and I want to hear more about this, Ryan. And I'd love to hear, I think all three of us have been in this role of player coach.
Yes.
And I would argue for people listening to this, I think that there are career opportunities, but I'd like to hear more about your specific situation, Ryan. How did you resolve that? What did you end up putting aside?
So this is where I had to take a step away from my player activities. I had to see the bigger picture. And I think anybody who's taking this role as a player coach is doing it because they have ambitions to be a leader, right?
Yeah.
So I had to think, okay, how do I be a leader? Not how do I be a better player? So I had to take the step back. I resolved this by saying, I am not only going to have the best interests of myself and my players in mind, I've got to bring the whole product team together, slap roadmaps on the table, and say, look at the big picture, everybody. Where's the thing? Like, we need to collectively agree, what is the business outcome we are chasing here? Which one is the best one? And so
then what suffered? Did something give?
Oh, yes, absolutely something gave. But so the way I managed it was I didn't just take from the two things that were under my purview, mine and my player. I actually was able to get some take from other product portfolios in the shared resource pool. So I had, like I said, that was the bigger picture for me. I was saying, okay, you over there, do you really need that one at this time? Or is the outcome I'm working towards more important right now? And putting all of us in a position to see the 10,000 foot view and have the hard conversations about what is the right thing to do to push the business forward.
Joe, he chose coach.
I chose coach.
That's what I just heard.
Yeah.
How about you, Joe? Were you same thing?
I chose player because, well, let me make sure I rephrase this. My focus was on the player because my brain went to, if I can be really good at being a product leader, a product manager, that is leadership. I am demonstrating my leadership by excelling in my product role. That held more value to me because I feel like if I'm going to grow in my career, what are they going to remember? Are they going to remember my numbers and my improvement and my adoption? Or are they going to remember, boy, Joe was a really good coach? I just think that that was that was a hard decision to make because the feedback I would get is, well, you didn't really spend as much time. And I'm like, I want to lead by example.
Right. When you were saying that, Joe, I actually think that's the model that people think of most often when they say player coach. I think the model that they think of is, I want someone to demonstrate, to do it and demonstrate it. That's what I think companies are really looking for. When they say player coach, they're talking about a principal product manager. They're talking about a person who is excellent at the craft and they want everyone to follow them. Here's what I think the disadvantage is. Not everyone wants to coach. Not everyone wants to manage.
Yep.
And so I think often when you take your workforce, your superstar who will just grind and make success happen no matter what, and that person has no interest in being a people manager or people leader, and you put, it sounded like I said people eater. They don't want to be, what is it? One horn, one-eyed, fine purple people eater, whatever it is. Purple people. Anyway, they don't want to be a people leader, right? They'll leave everyone to dust. They'll go out there, they'll grind and just embarrass people. And I've seen that in my career. I want you to react to that. Do you see that risk or no?
Yeah, I absolutely see that risk because I have dealt with people who don't want management responsibilities. I gravitate towards coach because I like it. I enjoy that style of work. Not to say I don't like achieving outcomes and being a product manager, but having the interaction and helping other people is very natural to me. I have worked with people that is not the case. I mean, going back to sports analogies, you guys probably more so than me could probably rattle off like half a dozen of an all-star who became a coach and was a spectacular failure.
Oh, I'll give you one right off the bat. Magic Johnson. And the reason was he was so frustrated that his players couldn't see what he sees. Now, he's Magic frickin' Johnson, so of course his players couldn't see what he sees.
Right.
But that happens in product management as well. Where I remember one instance at a former company where this guy was a rock star product manager. That's what he did well. But he's also a grinder. He's one of those guys that like, I don't care, 80 hours, whatever it's got to take. Like, I'm going to do it. And not everyone was built like him. They didn't see it his way. And mostly he had no empathy for someone else getting behind. So if someone ran into problems on his team, he had zero empathy for them because his point was like, grind out like me, be like me was his answer to any challenge.
I think it's interesting though, because, and this is where I can appreciate all of our experiences being so different. In product management, you have to be good to people. It's all about relationships. How can you be successful in product management without having successful relationships? So we've talked about, like, especially in the failure podcast, you know, one of my ginormous failures was our broken relationship with IT.
Yes.
So I grinded and like did everything I could to improve that relationship. And I wanted to show my team and my coworkers how much better we could be at product management if we had a stronger relationship, not only with IT, but with our operations team, with customer service, with marketing. So like, and maybe it's just the nuance of player coach.
Right.
But like, I think about like, okay, be the leader by demonstrating your actions. I wasn't thinking like, I'm going to go off on my own and be on a silo, like be on my own little bubble. It was, I'm going to build the best, the strongest, most effective relationships. And people are going to hear about it and they're going to see it and they're going to see how I'm getting work done. I'm not wasting time. Like, I'm going to set the example of great product management as a team sport. We talk about it in almost, I think in every podcast that phrase comes into play. So I don't know how a really good product manager can't be a player coach, like without the actual title. You know what I mean? Like that's the struggle I have with even the title of player coach, because you should just be doing it anyways. Right?
Your point is, if you're a product manager, you are a player coach.
Yes. 1000%.
But
where it fails is if you put the title of player coach, then there's this extra expectation. I'm like, no, you got it all wrong. Just be great at relationships.
So hold on. So what I've been talking about here is the formal responsibility of leading other product managers while also acting as a product manager.
Good clarification.
That's a good clarification.
Yeah.
And in that case, that's a very specific role. The reason I think there's an advantage to taking that role. So if it's offered to you, there's people right now going like, I kind of hoping to, that's my next step. I'm kind of hoping to get that. Here's the advantage. The advantage is you're kind of at the fork in the road of two different career paths. You can go the principal product manager career path, where you own a product, you lead by example, but you always own a specific product. Or you can go the people manager path, which often is like a director of product management role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In terms of pay, the pay scale for those two roles is about the same. But they're very different. I kind of feel that player coach is that fork in the road where you get to see, okay, where do I spike? What things am I good at? What excites me? What am I better at? For me, when I was in the player coach role, I would go to my regular Scrum meetings. I should say sprint ceremonies. That's what I should say. I'd go to my sprint ceremonies, and sure, I always love it. I loved working through solutions. And I loved, putting together the next sprint. But then when I'd work on the coaching side, where I was mentoring and helping resolve their problems, when they bring problems to me and say, Todd, we're challenged with this, and I'd help them resolve that. Oh, it was fireworks for me. So that's what part of what I see as an advantage of taking a role like that, even though there's a lot of challenges that come with it, is I get to see, which of these two paths should I take in my career?
Yeah, I would say try new things.
Get uncomfortable.
Get uncomfortable. But if you do that, so the mistake, learn from one of my mistakes, set the expectations very clearly. If this is a desire, if you're asking for it, know very clearly with your supervisor. I'm going to bring it back to the beginning. Make sure how will my success be measured for the management responsibility of my job? How will success be measured for my product responsibility? Is it just more spaghetti on top of a full plate? Or is it something different?
And you said you did it wrong, so you didn't set those expectations.
I did not set those expectations. I just pushed, like, this is what I want to try it. I want to try it. I want to grow. I want to develop this. People leadership is the next step. And it came a day when it was like, okay, you're up. But nothing changed when it came to so I had climbed the corporate ladder to a senior product management position. I had the biggest product line at the whole company, more responsibility than any other product manager. And all of a sudden, here manage these 3 people too.
Mm-hmm.
And I never set the level on what does that look like. So a year later or so, I'm having conversations and finding out for the first time that, well, okay, the department's not doing as well as we expect. And it's like, well, I didn't know what I was supposed to be aiming at.
You didn't even know what good was.
Right.
How about you, Joe? Do you have a method for that, for setting expectations? Did you have to deal with that too?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, because I was paranoid, I was worried, right? Because for me, I worked with some leaders that played the role or had the role of player coach, and they warned me. They said, be careful. So I was very lucky. I'll say that right now, because I was excited, because it's like all of us earlier in our career, it's like we have these aspirations, like these steps.
Yeah.
It's like, get the role, get in the company, get the role, get promoted to senior, whatever. And then you want to manage people and you think you've hit it, right? Now that I manage people, I get a nice office and I get a laptop. Back in the day it was, do I get a laptop? Can I bring a laptop home? Like that was a big deal. Like managers could bring a laptop home, right? Yeah. Like that was a big deal.
That
right?
was back when laptops weighed 40 pounds.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I was like ripped, in my back, right? Or you get a BlackBerry or something to that effect, right? It's like you get these. Yeah. I know I'm a little older than you guys, but yes. So
you get a car phone.
Yeah, Zach Morris. Yeah, I got a Zach Morris phone. So I try to be really detailed, probably to a fault, because I was paranoid about, okay, if we're sitting here a year from now, what does success look like? What do I need to do to get a gold star? I'd kind of made it like a fun joke, but I was serious. Like, what does Joe need to do to get a gold star when we do our review next year? Tell me, what are the things you'd like to see? So I try to be really particular and detailed about that success, and make sure that I blended those in to my, my rocks, or my, like what my review, like what my goals were for the year. And then, in our one-on-one and in our biannual review, I'd be like, hey, how are we doing here? Because I don't like surprises. But I learned that the hard way. And so I just became very focused and to a point, a little bit of a pain in the neck.
Yes.
But I just kept asking, how am I doing? How are we doing? We're on target. Do you have any, because what I didn't want was what happened with Ryan.
What's funny is I did it both ways. I did it the wrong way. I learned from the wrong way, did it the right way. In doing it the right way, there's something more I would do now today. But what I did was I made a list. I just went through and said, here are all the things I could do. It was this giant list. And then I just highlighted, these are the things I think you want me to do. Those are things I think you don't care if I actually get to or do at all. And I aligned with them that way. I would take it one step further today And I might break it down into percentages or points or something as well. And even just say like, hey, which of these scores the highest? In other words, force my management into a force ranking or force, prioritization. So it's, I can't do all these things. Which of these things matters?
Yeah. And I'm sure people are listening to this thinking like, Ryan, what the hell? Why didn't you just ask like before a year? And I have to qualify myself, give myself the out in that I was getting good feedback from both my employees and my manager throughout. And I think we need a future podcast, fellas, on annual performance reviews and their shortcomings.
Gag.
Ryan, I'm going to come at that thing with a pitchfork and a torch.
Oh, absolutely.
We don't do annual performance reviews at my company.
Hey,
we don't do them.
So
yes, let's do that. Let's make that let's write that one down.
Is that because of you, by the way? Is that your own?
Oh no, they didn't before I came on, which is fantastic.
Okay,
because I've been promoting that.
Yeah, for a while. I was like, whoa, Todd, good for you, dude, man. You're coming in like
coming in hot.
I want to know, Joe. You started off. So I was saying, here's the advantages of it, right? You get to look at 2 different career paths. If you do it, there's a right way to do it, and that is to make sure you set the expectations. What I want to ask for you, Joe, is did that turn out to be a good move for your career or not?
100%.
And do you think it usually is a good move for someone's career to be a player coach?
Absolutely. Here's why. If you ever want to leave and grow, you've got to be prepared to talk about leading people. But that's what I'm looking for. If I'm hiring somebody now, I want to know what are their experiences. Like these are things you can't learn in a certification or a book or articles. Like these are just life lessons. And when you get older in your career, further in your career, it's more about the value of those life lessons. That's going to tell me what kind of leader you're going to be in a product role. That's what I'm looking for.
So Joe, I'm hearing from you. If I asked you the question, should a PM want a player coach role? Your answer is yes.
Yes, just be prepared. If growing in their career is their goal and potentially making more money, that's another life lesson in your back pocket that will help you make better decisions later on in your career.
Todd, what about you? Should they do it?
Ooh, I got to give a hard yes or hard no, huh?
Yeah.
I have an alternative.
Okay.
I have an alternative yes. My alternative is not to take on the formal player coach role, but to find opportunities to coach and lead portfolio level projects without having the formal title.
Bingo.
That I think is the ideal. So I did that when I was at when I was at the LA Times. I had someone reporting to me, and she's just fantastic. I've bragged about her so many times. I'll say her name again. Her name's Caroline. Everyone should want Caroline on their team. She's great. But I noticed that, and that was one of her things was like, I'm ready to take on. Well, before we got into any formal management in terms of direct reporting or anything like that, we just started giving her projects she could lead with the team. And oftentimes I was there, like we would have a team meeting. I was there in like a support role, but she led it. And I did some of that. So it was kind of letting her lead with me as a safety net. And ultimately everyone reported to me. That I think is the best way to take a step in that direction. And you might take a step in that direction and be like, not for me. And then you don't have to deal with the blowback. Mm-hmm. That being said, I would agree with Joe. If you want to be a people manager, it's really hard to avoid going through that step. Ryan, should they do it? Should someone take on the player coach role?
Sometimes you don't always know. I want to be an independent contributor. I want to be a people manager unless you try it first. So
correct.
Yeah, I would encourage people, try it as a product manager. You don't know it, but you are leading people all of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like think about your stakeholder interactions. If that's the part of product management you like best, go for it. Become a player coach. If it's not, there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe an independent contributor position is better for you. And
Absolutely.
You would just be uncomfortable for the sake of being uncomfortable, which wouldn't be good for anybody.
I'm actually surprised how positive this first part has been. we seem pretty optimistic. I have to say something clearly here because I'd like to explore this. Player coach was the most difficult role I ever served in my career. Most difficult. I would rather be a leader or an IC over being some mashup of the two any day. But that being said, I really think we should highlight the challenges because all of us have kind of alluded to it. We're like, it's going to be hard. You're going to be uncomfortable. Yeah. Let's talk about the negatives, the really tough challenges of being a player coach.
Yeah, I think the natural one is you're just not going to do anything well. Like,
get ready to fail a lot.
Well, there's if you're new to the role, you're going to be learning by doing in a coach position. You're going to be finding out what works and what doesn't work.
Yep.
Very naturally, you're going to step in areas that don't work.
The reason why it scares me, the title, is the other person has to be, or the other people have to be willing participants.
Yep.
And
Great
the
point.
scenario I had a couple of jobs ago, the individual I was asked to coach was annoyed that they did not get my job, which was a more of a leadership role. And so even though I was told to coach and mentor this individual did not trust me. He was not open to it. He didn't know why I was asked to coach him. Like everything, it just went, I was an uphill battle because the person who was doing it didn't understand why. They weren't bought in. Leaving one organization and going to another into a player coach role is like when we talk about like how you go into player coach, I think there's some caveats to this. If you're in the same organization and you're being promoted, maybe. I think it's an easier uphill battle versus jumping from one organization to another into that player coach role. I think you have a lot going against you right off the bat. You're in the negative.
I'd like to give some advice for what to do if you're in that position.
Okay.
Because I had that in my personal career. I'm going to set the context here. And I can't believe we've never done this. I think you all are going to enjoy this. Just picture this. I'm starting at a new company at the same time as 3 other individuals.
Okay.
All of us coming in to create this new product suite. All of us directors of product management. However, I'm the leader. And from day one, I'm told that I'm the lead. Now, none of these people report to me. The plan is for all of them to report to me within a matter of a couple months. First off, how do you guys think that would go? What do you imagine?
It's going to be head-butting power plays and politics.
Especially a director level role. At a director level role.
It was all of that. All of us were new at the same time. So all of us were dealing with all these different things at once, trying to establish ourselves within the company, right? You got to establish your own position, get respect and trust within the company, right? So we're trying to do that, trying to learn the industry, learn the company, right? We're all trying to do that individually. At the same time, for everyone, this is the most senior position they've ever held. It was hard. So hard. I got a lot of pushback on things. And I'm a first-time leader of, those are the most senior people that ever reported to me to this point, right? So I don't know how to manage people this senior. Up until then, people tend to be more junior. Most of them I hired myself. This is a different scenario. It was a big struggle, but this is where I want to give a point of advice and what I think what helped. We struggled for many months until there was these galvanizing moments. I invested my entire energy into demonstrating how much I trust them and how much I'm on their side and will support them. So there are things that I did. I went to bat for them, sometimes even when they wouldn't know it, I'd go to bat for them. I'd go into these meetings. I would let them vent to me when they were upset. And so I think those things, I've never asked them. I think those things are what galvanizes us. Interestingly enough, to this day now, it's been 5 years or something. Gosh. Yeah. To this day, we go out once a quarter. We all go out to dinner together. And we have a great relationship.
So you guys have each given a scenario of what can happen. I have another one. Okay. You're hired into a role as in a more senior product individual contributor position. There is an individual on the team who is at a product manager level, but not a top performer, but hasn't been performing very well. And they see, oh, this new guy, he's been here about 6 months. He's doing really well. Let's put the guy who's not doing well under him. See if he can help turn it around.
He didn't appreciate that, huh?
No. but it wasn't positioned that way. Unlike Joe, the person was willing. They're happy with it. They kind of saw it as an out. Like, oh, I'm not under the microscope anymore. Like, you are, sort of thing. And it's then the pressure you get from what I saw, my boss, who the guy previously reported to, who frankly didn't have his own success trying to turn it around, now pointing the finger saying, what are you doing? Like, why aren't things getting better? You now need to be the one that gives them the performance improvement plan. You now need to be the one that
you got scapegoated.
That's
You know, it's funny. That's a win-lose-win. He wins. He doesn't have to be the bad guy anymore and doesn't have to look like he's failing or deal with the PIP. He wins. The other guy wins because he doesn't have any pressure on him. He's not dealing directly with that management. You lose. You get to be in the sandwich.
Right.
You're in the middle of the sandwich losing.
Yeah. So talk about a reason not to do it. There's a big one.
Yeah. And I will say that to that point, that's something you got to understand if you're going to do player coach. You got to understand that the relationships change.
Yeah.
The relationship's going to change. It changes. That was what was also hard in the player coach role for me, was I often felt like I didn't have a home because there was a senior management team, but they weren't my team. And then I had the people who reported to me, but they weren't my team either. So I went from having a team to no team. And it's not like there was this other layer of, hey, there's like 4 player coaches. We can all hang out together. There wasn't any other ones. So it's just, I'm on my own team. That's lonely. That's tough.
Actually, that's why I left one of my... So I actually went to an organization, Todd, that was a collection of player coaches. So I worked for a CPG, and they had a product transformation office. It was a collection of product coaches, and we were deployed to help them in their product transformation globally. 5 years ago, it was, you're a unicorn, and now everyone claims to be a product coach.
Yeah.
Right? And now people just want doers. People just want doers, and they're going to give them a director title.
Yeah.
They just want doers, and they're going to slap a director title. They don't want. That's why, it scares in this economic environment. I don't know that I'd want to have that title.
You don't know that you'd want to have the executing director of product management title?
No, I don't know that I'd want to have the player coach title.
Oh, interesting.
The half step.
I don't know right now, because everything is getting squeezed. It's all about execution.
I would agree with that. The one thing, there is a refocusing on execution. I feel like the pendulum swings, right? When we swing one way too much and then we swing the other way too much, we're constantly swinging. And there are, I will say there's a lot for knowing how to execute. Sometimes I think that product coaches can end up in ivory towers where we talk about how to do things. I feel that way sometimes. I get frustrated, even in my own company. There are times when I'm talking and I get kind of annoyed myself, and I'm like, oh, are you being too much of a professor here? I don't want to be a professor of product management. I want to help my company become successful.
Yep.
So I think no matter what role you're in, you should always be executing. You should always have a piece of your job needs to be actual execution.
Yep.
Yeah.
That being said, there might be a lot of people who claim to be coach, claim to be a product leader, claim to be a people manager, but don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
I find him in my career, in my experience, great leadership is rare. It's not common. There's it takes a certain person to have a desire to put themselves in that role. Okay, you guys, let's use a movie reference. You guys know the Spider-Man movie reference, right? Where is it from the second Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man? He's holding the train back. Is it one?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
It's the second.
Yes.
Is it one or is it the
Doc
second?
Ock. With
Second
Doc Ock.
one,
Yeah.
Dr. Octopus.
He's holding
Yes,
that
Doc Ock.
train back, right? And that train's like ripping his arms apart and he falls and then they carry him in. It's a sweet moment. Honestly, you have to be willing to do that if you're going to be a great leader. You have to be willing at times to let that train freaking hit you. And you do everything to hold the train back. As your team goes, what are we doing? Why aren't we doing the right thing? And you're going to stand in front of the entire senior leadership team and say, no, this is where we need to go. Or when a team makes a mistake, I use mistakes in quotation marks because Ryan, you've correctly framed it before as learning.
Yeah.
But a lot of times senior management doesn't understand learning. You have to be the one to step in front of the train and say, this is learning. So I saw a great example of this, a leader. This is a true leader in a company. His name's Turl. He deserves a shout out. He was in a room being asked for a name. Give me the name. Who is the person that did this? From the most senior leader, right? And he said, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. And give me a name. Say, fine, you can, Turl. You can blame me. That's what a leader does. I think that's a rare quality. I think that and to me, so being a coach, if coach means sitting in an ivory tower, shouting directions, saying, being a professor, okay, fine. I see very little value in that.
Yeah.
But if being a coach means being a leader who's willing at times to let the train hit him or her, that's valuable. And that takes some special qualities.
Todd, I couldn't help but feel as you were talking about what makes a leader. That's a whole nother podcast episode, by the way.
Yeah, I agree.
What makes a leader? I have had a leader. You guys have been giving honorable mentions. I got to shout out Chris. He was my first mentor in product management, and holy smokes, did that guy go to bat for me? Was my shield. Like he made me fall in love with product management, quite frankly. And if we like, if you hear that and you think, I want to do that for somebody, try it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go try and exercise that muscle. See how you can be Spider-Man holding the train back. It's gonna be painful in the short term.
Now I gotta go back and watch Spider-Man 2. By the way, that was a very cultural reference. That was a solid sequel. 3 wasn't so good with Toby, but the second one pretty solid.
I liked the second one.
Oh, the second one's the best one.
Yeah, the second one.
I think so.
I think the second one, the Amazing Spider-Man series, wasn't bad either, but that's another discussion.
The third one, I recently watched it with my kids. The third Tobey Maguire movie.
Oh, with Spawn.
What the heck?
Yeah, I know.
Not
so
Spawn
bad.
with Venom.
Oh, Venom. That's what I meant.
Well,
same creator, Todd McFarlane, same creator.
Yeah, Sandman and Venom and the Hobgoblin. It's like all of the villains.
Yeah, it was so bad.
And there's a dance number in
the
there's
a song and dance number.
It's jumping the shark. That was, I was like, where are you going?
Reference. Nice Happy Days reference. Yeah. Nice Wisconsin. So let's wrap this up. All right. So words of advice. So let me start. If I'm hiring for a director level role, I want to know you've taken some risks. I want to hire the type of leader that Todd is explaining, right? I want to hire Todd And I mean that like I'd hire you two, Ryan, just to let you know. Like I'd hire both of you. Just equal love here. But I want to know, like, those are the experiences I want to hear about in a job interview. I can read the resume. I can look at LinkedIn. I can talk to your references. I can, with social media, you can do a lot of digging. I want to know what kind of person you're going to be, right? Because when the going gets tough, are they going to fight?
Yeah.
Right. That's what I want. Me, I'm in that squishy, soft skills arena. Those are the characteristics I'm looking for. So yes, I think it's a horrible job right now. I wouldn't want it, but gosh darn it, if you want to grow, you gotta take some risks, get some scabs, learn from it, because it'll make you better at what you do.
I agree, and I'll add to that. I would say be prepared for it not to last long.
Yes,
and I don't mean that you're going to get fired. I don't mean that. But I just mean that, like, it's a furnace, and you probably don't want to be in that furnace for 4 years.
Right.
It's a furnace. So you're going to get in there, you're going to learn, you're going to get ready to do whatever comes next. The other piece of advice I would give is there's a right situation. I think I benefited from an accident, even being thrown into that, all four of us at the same time, really strange leadership context. The one thing I had going for me is my product was the platform on which the other products sat, which gave me a very central role to what the other products were doing. That helps as well. Where your product sits in the portfolio or the suite in alignment to the other products really makes a difference on how successful that role can be.
So I think my takeaway from this one is the product manager as a player coach needs to be carefully considered. I really liked what you were saying earlier, Todd, about look for those portfolio opportunities. Like really look for a way to be a business leader without formally having, like, it's not as important to have the direct management responsibility. It's more important to give yourself the experiences, and you can do that in many informal ways.
Yep.
Like, don't be afraid. Like, nobody needs to give you permission. Do it. Like, try things out.
Yeah. Go be a mentor. Go be a leader.
Correct.
Share what you've learned with others. Yeah.
Yep.
This was fun.
This was therapeutic.
I only have 4 stories left. I've told almost all.
Check. Todd's got like a checklist.
Yeah.
All
like,
stories. He's like, I got 3 left. What am I gonna do?
I better make some new stories. Thank you for joining us on the Product Porch. We release new episodes every 2 weeks. You can also find us on LinkedIn for more content. We offer a special thank you to AJ and Jack Blockhier for the music. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts of this podcast are their own and do not represent nor necessarily reflect those of their employer.